I think the road less traveled is a difficult one. It's a narrower road. Most people don't take it. And the ones that get to the other side are the ones who've really comfortable walking that tightrope and going, I know what I can do. And so I think cutting my teeth multiple times, falling down multiple times, really, you asked earlier about resilience. And I think that just, it comes from being knocked down. I've been knocked down a lot in life.
Welcome to Adapt or Die Transformative Leadership Conversations. Every week I meet very senior leaders and we talk about what made them either pivot or perish. I'm Andreas Pettersson. I'm a former tech CEO that turned leadership advisor and founders of Leaders Adapt. Today's guest is Marina St. Welcome so much to the show.
Thank you so much. And I am glad to have a friend that sees me in the light that you do.
It's always interesting when I make the intros for others. Yeah. Because I have so many things I want to say, especially if it's someone I know very well. And you and I, we have spent many hours discussing leadership. But before we jump into that conversation and sort of the challenges you have been through, can you give me a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background, where you come from? What are the main highlights of your career?
Strictly career, right?
Life, anything.
Yeah, my background. So let's stick with career until you make me go otherwise, if you want another route, since you know so much about me. So, I started my career in commercial real estate. My first job out of college was working for a commercial real estate portfolio manager. And I fell in love with real estate then, commercial real estate specifically. So I was fascinated by Class A office buildings. I then moved into an industrial warehouse portfolio that I really snubbed my nose at originally, thinking like, oh, this is not sexy, it's not beautiful, until I walked into those buildings and I met owners and developers and inventors who created tangible items. And I was fascinated with the entire manufacturing world. I never thought I would leave commercial real estate. And lo and behold, as you know, I have been fascinated by manufacturing and love it. It seems dirty to other people, but I love walking into any building that makes product and learning all about that process. And, so that's how I started. And that's been my career path for the last 30 years.
How many companies have you been involved in buying and selling, or how many millions have you transacted throughout your career?
I don't know that I've totaled it all up. The transaction sizes have really ranged from 1 million to 150 million, I think is the largest. And so it's been everything in between. I've done several small deals. We did a few large deals. The very first one I did, which is how I got my teeth cut, and boy, was it hard. That was a $75 million acquisition. What was comfortable about that, even though it was challenging, is we were actually buying what appeared to be our number one competitor in the market. So we had a lock on the market. We knew everything about the product, the category, the customers, et cetera. And we knew that by buying our largest competitor out there, we could, double our business, improve operating efficiencies, take out a lot of fluff, and make ourselves even more money. So that was my very first deal. And that was big and it was hard.
How many deals have you done so far, roughly, or been involved in?
So I should have prepared for this. I'm going to say roughly 12.
Yeah.
12 to 14.
The fact that you're not counting anymore, I think it's a sign in itself. And as long as I have known, for last year, I've known you, Marina, I want to say, is it 3 deals? 2?
Since I've known you. Yeah, I do on average 2 a year.
Yeah.
For the last few years. Some have been larger than others. I want to say we did 3 last year. I've already done 2 this year, and that's January through April. So, and we're constantly looking at other deals too. So even though we don't close on them, we're probably looking at 5 or 6 opportunities every year. This year, I think we have on the horizon doing some larger deals than we've ever done before, at least at the current, place. And yeah, so it's been a busy year in addition to, acquiring some new real estate. And so there've been quite a few things going on in this first quarter of the year.
Yeah, you've been running and gunning for sure. So for the listeners, you know how sometimes you meet people and they say, I've done this, I have done that. And then when you really start asking the first layers of questions, they can kind of answer. But when you get to the second and the third layers, they have no clue of like what was actually done. They don't know the details of the deal. They don't understand it really. They signed the paper. Marina is the opposite of that. Marina have crawled through the details, just listening through some of the conversations we have had about leadership dilemmas and everything that goes on. There's a lot of emotions to unpack when you go through an M&A on both
Absolutely.
sides. And you're the one who, when shit hits the fan, you stand there and you're ready to handle it. So your detail orientation is crazy for me. And I have witnessed how you're running and gunning and you're negotiating and dealing. And then the next second, you step out and you do something with one of your kids, and you switch like instantly. And I think that's one thing that really impressed me. But where does this resilience come from? Where does this fighting mentality come from? You just keep going. It must come from somewhere.
I don't know that I've ever been any different, to be completely honest. I mean, I grew up having to fight my way through everything, right? So as I'm a multiracial person. And so growing up with all kinds of complexities in my life, and having to move quite a bit. So I went to 15 different schools before I graduated high school alone. And so what that required was movement every single year, adapting every single year from different economic classes, different racial makeups. I've been through it all. And so I really had to learn how to fight my way in and also just be able to adapt at a moment's notice. It wasn't really an option for me. And it certainly isn't anything I shied away from. So, I've had people ask me before, like, well, I would freeze if that happened to me. And I was like, yeah, it depends. People are different. I'm not a freeze kind of person. People say you have natural responses, and I'm definitely just in those 3 natural responses. I'm a fighter. I don't know any other way to be. And sometimes I run in without thinking. Like, I see a problem, and today, I mean, nothing has changed. If something happens, I'm like, I'm in, I'm not out. I'm not a bystander. I never have been. And that hasn't always worked in my favor. And I've made a lot of mistakes by rushing in, certainly. But it's just who I've always been. And I've had to adapt year after year after year from a very, very young age.
Your persona fits the podcast very well, adapt or die. But not only that, Marina, I have a lot of people I've seen, a lot of strong leaders in private equity, buying and selling companies, when they're in struggling moments and they're failing or they're struggling, they just lock down. It's weird. And you almost, when you are in those high pressure moments, you think more clearly. I've seen that happen to you. Why is that? Is that your background, or is that something you also perfected over time? Are you aware when you're in the moment and you're still like keeping the focus and leading others through it? Or are you just like focus on the target? Like, what's going on in your mind?
I don't know that it was learned or natural, but what I know is whenever there are difficulties, and this could be personally or professionally, right? In your marriage, with your children, your finances, if you don't zoom in, and I mean zoom in, then you will get way too much distraction around you. Mm-hmm. And so for me, when problems arise, I really will tune everything out and just dig in. That's just how I've learned to be, and it's what works for me. And I think because I've had my hands in so many things my entire life, right? Even from the number of kids that I have had my hands in so many things that I've just had to learn, what can I handle right now? What can I do right now? and not worry about anything else until that's done. Otherwise, it becomes baggage for me. And I can't let go of it. I can't stop thinking about it. It's affecting everything else. So when there are problems, you need to troubleshoot them and you need to attack them. That's just the way I operate, home and professional life.
What's your red flag? In what moment are you like, okay, now it's getting too much pressure, or I need to do something else? Like, are you aware in the moment?
I don't know that I am. So one of the things I think, again, because I don't freeze, when problems arise, whether they are expected or unexpected, it lands in front of you. So what do? You handle what happens right here, right now. I can't spend my time focusing on everything that I have no control over. So if there is something that lands in my lap right now and I can control it and I can handle it and I can address it, then that's what we do.
It's not simple for other people. I think I've seen a lot of leaders, top leaders, executive freeze in moments where it's not chaos, but it might be, how do we say, a little bit of do or die situations. And the person who usually is the silverback gorilla and knows exactly what to do in the moment, their dominance disappear, men and women. I've seen that happen multiple times, and some people are just better in high pressure situations. They think clearly, they remain logical, while most people don't. And I've seen you and I've listened to your stories, and I think what is obvious for you, or it's just who I am, is not the case for others. And that's why I'm a little curious. But walk me through a situation where you've been in a deal where everything is going like crazy and you stumble upon some red flags. How do you deal about that situation? Who do you tell?
Like the one that I just did, without disclosing too much.
I don't know how much you want to talk about those, but feel free, whatever you can talk about. What do you do in high pressure situation? Red flag, who do you put in the room? Like, walk me through the scene, how you handle that situation.
So who do I put in the room? I mean, I don't have a whole lot of outside sources that I run to. I will say that. And so one of the things that I've learned just in almost all of the M&A deals that I've done, there's a high level of confidentiality. So those aren't things that you just share with everybody. Oftentimes, I've dealt with public and private companies. And so there are some things that just cannot be disclosed. And not everybody can handle all information. And not everybody can handle the truth. And so what I've learned is, I'm trying to think without saying too many details. I've come across situations where you're presented a picture, right? It's the reason why we want to buy a company. And as you start to do your due diligence and dive in, whether that's looking at the numbers or speaking to people, you start unpacking maybe some things that aren't kind of equating to the story that you had in mind. And so when that happens, you need to stop and kind of peel back the layers and going, okay, what am I seeing here? Because I'm coming up with a different story than what I've been told. And so I could be right or wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong, right? In most situations. But until you know and uncover it and discover it, you have to really trust your gut instinct. And I think, people don't like that, but you have to trust your instincts. And if your instincts are telling you from experience or anything else, especially I think when dealing with people, you have to say, hey, I'm sensing something not adding up. Even if I don't have the answer right now, I'm going to listen to that. I have to. It's not really optional for me. And so that's kind of the way I've always operated. And that might, have come from a survival mechanism and my background of having to be aware of your surroundings and just changing environments so often that if I don't pay attention, I might miss something really important. And that could affect my safety, right? Just, even being a woman in today's world. So I think it's a natural thing to look for and pay attention to.
How do you now, let's say that you're in a middle of an M&A, the story doesn't add up, you have had the conversations, you go to your partners and you tell them about the situation. How do you go about sort of laying out the full picture and the story and you're seeing? Like, because it's one thing if it's data point, but it's a different thing if it's just a gut feel still.
Yes. So I don't generally share my gut feelings immediately. right? I do want to back it up a little bit because I could be wrong. The one thing I always do say is, Marina, you can be wrong. And so I'm not afraid of that. And the willingness to just say, okay, this is what I'm thinking. Let me just check a few other areas. Let me see what that data point or those trails tell me. And, the opinion of one person isn't going to weigh heavily on me, honestly. It is the repeated patterns that maybe I'm hearing something that is going to raise an eyebrow. So I do gather a little bit more information. One, I respect other people's time. So just like I expect my kind of direct reports and people who work with me, I don't want you just to throw something on my desk and say, hey, I have a problem. I want you to think about it. And I want you to come up and tell me, hey, here's the problem. Here's what I know. Here's what I'm thinking. And then get your input. I do the same thing, right? So when I'm speaking with my partner and I've got some things that I need to now uncover about a deal, I lay it out. I say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. These are my concerns. Let's regroup really quickly. Or, my opinion, I'll just say in this recent instance, I was seeing a lot of red flags. However, the deal still made a lot of sense even with the red flags. And so I had to make the decision, like for me at that point, it was like, is this deal still worth doing? It absolutely was. So now how do I work around it? What maneuvers do I have to do? What pivots do I have to make this deal close under different circumstances or terms?
And you for sure did, because I don't want to disclose the details, and I don't know the details, but I did see you pivot a lot of times in these deals. And again, we didn't go through details, but when you say that the deal still made sense from a strategic perspective, from a numbers perspective, from a people perspective, I mean, what is required for deals to really make sense for you, even if you see red flags?
Okay, so one, it's even though I'm going to say it's a gut feeling, it's not. I don't get excited about a lot of things. A lot of people do, right? There are people who bring things to me all the time that get really excited about things, and I don't tend to get moved that easily. In this last deal, I was moved. And so what I saw were just undeniable opportunities given the right management, right? Given the right direction that I believed 100% we as a team could move this company forward in. And I think they were hidden opportunities. And I just felt like it was a little bit of a gem, right? It's like, this is not one I want to let go of. And I know it looks a little dirty right now, but let's just get our hands a little bit dirty. Let's rub off some of this dirt. And I think this thing is going to shine. And I felt really strongly about that. Now, the numbers weren't beautiful the way they sat, but it really was about the numbers I was 98% confident in that could change. So the revenue numbers absolutely could change. I saw a lot of opportunities in expenses that were just probably avoidable. And I saw tons of opportunities for future efficiencies and additional cost savings. And so there were too many opportunities, and they were opportunities that I knew I could influence. So that was just one that I was like, wow, I do not like, I don't like the mess that was handed to me. And I don't like the things that I have to navigate with potential lawsuits being threatened so we had to pivot quite a bit. We had to even change how we did this M&A. This was going to be a full acquisition merger type of deal. And we ended up having to recreate it and make it an asset purchase agreement in order to make it a little safer for us and reduce some of the liability that was kind of just waiting out there. And then we had to individually just smooth over some really hurt feelings and ruffled feathers, and navigating a lot of other players that were involved in this that I had no idea that I'd be doing. So
I love it. Okay. So tell me, let's say like this, you are now talking to a younger group of people. They maybe have done one deal. Maybe they are just starting acquiring other companies. What advice would you give them based on all your experience? Like, what is the first things that come to your mind?
For me, I think in everything I've ever done and every deal I've ever done, good or bad, right? Some are better than others. I really like to take the time to stop and evaluate and go, what did I like about this deal? What really went well? And what didn't? Because one of the things, no one wants to do in their career, and I don't care if it's a deal or otherwise, is make the same mistake twice. And so mistakes are one of the best learning tools that I've ever encountered. I hate them. They're often painful. But I learn lessons that stick with me. And so my recommendation is you've got one deal down. Congratulations. I hope that things went wrong in that deal. I really do, because it's almost like if you have multiple children and your first child is just a dream child and gosh, gave you no grief, just slept through the night, at 6 weeks and, potty trained by the time they were 1 and everything just went smoothly, you are not prepared and maybe even worse off. When child number 2 comes and it didn't quite work out that way, you're overwhelmed because you had an expectation that just isn't normal. I, on the other hand, had the most difficult first child to where most people said, why would you have any more? And I was just like, I'm crazy. So, I had an opposite experience, but learning that. And so even that example alone, talking to other moms, I was like, ooh, I would not wish to have the perfect child first, nor would I have wanted to experience the perfect deal first. I think it would have tainted.
You run straight into the next one and everything is possible. I agree.
Yes.
You learn more from your failures. You learn absolutely more from rejection than you do from
100%.
anything else.
So yeah, I don't wish that on anyone. I don't wish a really easy road. I know people today, especially, what's the shortcut? What's the quickest way to get there? Is there an easy way to do it? That might work for some people. But for me, I think the road less traveled is a difficult one. It's a narrower road. Most people don't take it. And the ones that get to the other side are the ones who've really comfortable walking that tightrope and going, I know what I can do. And so I think cutting my teeth multiple times, falling down multiple times, really, you asked earlier about resilience. And I think that just, it comes from being knocked down. I've been knocked down a lot in life.
And reflecting
so
on the knockdowns and learning from them and sharing them with others so you can get their data point on what they did to overcome them.
I'm getting better at sharing, but that hasn't always come very easily.
But when you do, you accelerate things. That's the thing.
Yes. Well, and, I think that's pinpointed, right? I even think about, in my personal life, I worked with a lot of youth for many, many years. And so I tended to gravitate towards those who maybe had stories like mine. I don't need to share that with everybody, right? I didn't feel the need to share my story with everybody, but for someone that it could help, that I can say, listen, I want you to know that I've been where you are at. I may not feel exactly the same about it, but there is hope on the other side, right? Because you can look at me 30 years later, 40 years later, and 50 years later and saying, I am a product of everything I've been through, and the product's pretty damn good.
It is. And I just want to add to what you're saying. I mean, you should be looking in the rearview mirror for reflections and for understanding, but who you want to become, you won't find that in the rearview mirror. You will find it ahead on the road. And if you don't take action and just move forward, you're not going to change anything. You're not going to get there. And I mean, you're definitely an action taker, Marina. I meet a lot of people in my life that are not action takers. They're good at complaining. You just do. What does slowing down look for you? When are you living an organic, calm, peaceful, mindful life? What are you doing in those moments?
So you have to make those moments. And I don't have long periods of them. As you know, my life is incredibly busy. But I think that you find and you make intentional moments to, I call it self-care, right? And so what we learned recently about each other is that we had a shared kind of practice, this idea of watching the sunrise. It's a moment, right? It doesn't last long, 40 minutes max, and but you find these moments along the day and in your life where you can kind of step out of what you're doing and just be present in the moment. And so those are my moments of calm. And I I take some of them, like during a really busy day, or a chaotic day, which happens a lot for me. I tend to retreat. And so I will go have lunch by myself and sit at a park, or just pull away in the middle of my day for 30 minutes to 45 minutes because it allows me to regroup. So, I mean, that's what I do. You have to take it and use it and then go back in.
What other
Like that ring is
practices
still
do you
waiting.
do? What other
What's that?
reflection practices, what other leadership practices do you do that you think others would benefit from doing?
Journaling has always been big for me. And that could have been, I don't know what other people do, honestly, right? So since I grew up moving so much, I didn't really have friends. I didn't learn how to make friends until I became an adult. So I didn't have someone to bounce things off of. I didn't have a childhood best friend, that I ran to and told all of my, sob stories or anything else, or even, my joys. So I think reading and writing are both things that just I could do alone, and I could get new information in and I could take information out. Journaling has been very cathartic for me and really eye-opening too. When I've gone back and looked at some things that have shocked me from, like, I wrote that 7 years ago. How is that manifesting today? And or it's interesting, and I actually need to take the advice today that I wrote back then that I forgot about. I think those are some of the moments that have been really aha moments for me.
I think I agree with you on journaling, by the way. And I also think that sometimes when you're you're just getting them out on a piece of paper, you don't realize them until afterwards. I tell every other CEO, I would say the number one hack for me is every Sunday, I reflect on the week. I reflect on my state of mind. I reflect on what I got done. And then next Sunday, I read what I wrote the last Sunday. Every quarter, I go back and read the quarter. Every year, I go back and read a year. I think doing that exercise makes me always be in the front of who I am and not who I was 10 years ago. Because it's always top of mind that I have internalized my learnings and I'm moving forward next week with those learnings in mind.
I love that you shared that, Andreas, and we've had this conversation before. I, like probably many other people, often get stuck looking in the rearview mirror. Right? It happens. It's so easy to look right there. It's so convenient, especially if you're thinking about how quickly that is you're driving. I mean, that window is so big in front of you, and all of us continue to watch the rearview mirror almost too much. And, I know I had shared with you recently this saying that really just, oh my gosh, pierced my heart when I heard it. And it was, my past no longer needs me, but my future does. And so, in a lot of the work that I've been doing over these last few years, I really realized, like, my past has been nothing but a weight and an anchor that is slowing me down. And there is no reason, one, that it should, or that I should give it permission to, because it really doesn't define who I am today. It doesn't affect who I am today. And yet I will let things from my past really, for lack of better terms, hurt my feelings, right? And it was like, who cares? There are times that I just really go, it's time to sever that cord. And I know that intellectually. And sometimes my heart will still go backwards, right? So it's a constant awareness and something that I have to push forward through. And I realize when I'm dragging that anchor along the seafloor going, gosh, I should be able to go faster. And it's hard because I think people on the outside, will say, gosh, you're already doing so much. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm not even anywhere close to where I should be. That's how I feel. I'm also my worst critic, right? And I do believe that I have a ton of potential and I just have not yet reached it.
Yeah.
So,
Life
I
is
don't know if
long.
I ever will. And I'm fine with that too. I'm
Life
fine
is
with always
long
pursuing.
if you know how to use it. And you have you're a person who's taking control of your life and your destiny. Let's jump into a quick lightning round. We'll go through a couple of quick questions, like no unfiltered, like no filtered answer. It just whatever comes to your mind, okay? What's one meeting rule you never break?
One meeting rule that I never break. I always just take notes. Like, that's something I've done in every meeting. I don't care how small it is. If somebody says they want to meet for 5 minutes, like, I have a note in hand because I don't know what nugget or one piece of information that can change the game, oftentimes they're unexpected.
And you're showing the other person you really care what they're saying by taking notes. And therefore, they will naturally connect on a deeper level with you.
Or I also send the message that I don't want to have meetings that don't actually have any impact. So there better be something good in this. I don't know.
All good. What's the one common leadership pitfall you watch out for, either with yourself or with others?
I pay attention to ego. I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it's a really dangerous thing to have. We all have it though, right? And so I think in any leadership or potential leadership, so when I'm looking at people for potential leadership roles or I'm evaluating leadership today, I want to know who I'm dealing with and what other either landmines I need to navigate, or how to massage what I need to massage to get what I need to get. So egos really impact people and it stops them from moving forward. You kind of take some unnecessary long way around the mountain type of road sometimes. And so I just need to know what I'm dealing with.
I got a younger question for us both here. What's your favorite go-to emoji when you're communicating with your team over text?
Oh, God. So I don't really like using emojis for business. It's going to be a thumbs up, maybe a heart. That's it. You're not going to get much else out of me from a business standpoint. It's a heart or a thumbs up or a no response. You're not going to get maybe a ha ha ha. Maybe. Unicorn.
Yeah. It is, because I'm surrounded by amazing unicorn people that are amazing leaders.
Yeah.
Okay, one last thing. I think you already dropped a few quotes, so we might just repeat the one you already said because I think it's amazing. But what is your absolutely favorite leadership quote or mantra that you can say in one breath?
So that one that is really powerful is about my past no longer needs me, but my future does.
Yeah.
The other one that I shared on another podcast was that everything I've ever wanted has light on the other side of fear. And that has really been kind of a life lesson for me. And when I encounter things that I don't know at work, or I'm going after a new venture or starting a new company and doing something, I do a lot of things that I've never done before, often, right? And so when you're doing something you've never done before, you're always going to experience some trepidation and some uncertainty. And you need to do it anyway, because you won't know otherwise.
I think we should end on that note, Marina. As always, thank you for being a unicorn, and thank you for showing the rest of the world that you are a unicorn. I think the word adaptability is really the personification of your leadership style and everything you're doing in life. You're curious, you're passionate, adaptable, smart, driven. Like, you have all the traits of a phenomenal leader. But let's say that other leaders listen to this and they're like, hey, how do I get in contact with Marina? And how can people find you? And what is it that you want to tell them?
Honestly, I would probably say LinkedIn is the best because I am very hard to reach. And so Marina Watson St. Cyr is how I'm located on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way to reach me. I will look at it, but I only look at it probably once a week.
Awesome.
I've got a really full schedule.
Thank you so much for listening to Adapt or Die. The conversation today with Marina is amazing. Why? Because it showcases how much you can get out of your professional career and your life and your mindset if you just face fear head on. With that said, I would really appreciate if you learned something from this podcast. Please go and share it with another leader who you believe can benefit from hearing it. Also, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, or go to Spotify and leave us a review there. I again want to thank you, Marina, for being on the show. And for everyone else, please remember, in leadership, we adapt and thrive, or we don't survive. Until next time, bye.